What's good, hunters? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to take a deep look at field judging animals. If you play on Ranger, you know that it's very tough to field judge animals. Sometimes their gender, their age, what to look for. Especially Gemsboks, or Gemsboks as they would call them. These are very tough animals to judge because of the way they look. Now, the question is, how much of the encyclopedia can we go by? So if we look up Gemsboks, kind of see what body variations we have. It says that as they age, their heads get lower. Males tend to have thicker horns with larger bases. Females have slightly longer and thinner horns. Now this is all we have to go by as far as the encyclopedia is concerned. Now I don't know how much is actually implemented from a real life perspective, but we do know that this is where we can find information as to how we can judge age and gender. So as we look at real life photos, we can see that the males have their genitals pretty much under their belly. And if we look closely here, we can see that some of these animals don't have that. So we can right away judge and say, okay, that's one of the key things we can look for. As we can see that male in the back compared to the female in front. We can actually look and say, okay, that's one thing we can look for. And that's fantastic. Now to tell age, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because now we're going to have to look at the coat of the animal. We have to sort of assume that this pale looking type of coat is an older male or an older female. Now, I don't know how consistent that is across the genders. So, if you're going to judge by the horns, then the thinner looking horns at the base and all the way through are the females. Apparently the males have thicker bases to their horns. Now it's kind of tough to even judge that from these distances, so you kind of have to really get close and spend a lot of time observing the herd or the animal. And I think this is a very underrated part of Way of the Hunter. I think because of the star system, these little things are overlooked. Because the analysis actually tells you what gender the animals are. So you're not really paying attention or looking in the field to judge them. But when you move to Ranger, you have no choice. This is the only way you can judge the ages of these animals. So I want to take one of these guys out so we can kind of see and have a gauge as to how we can judge these animals. So I have a nice male here. Just went behind this bush. So we have a nice male right here. The horns doesn't look too long, but they're very thick at the base, as you can see. So let's take him out. Let's take him out and kind of see if our judgment was correct. From a gender perspective, and then we can see what this age looks like. So as we're approaching the herd here, just kind of want to have a look. And we can see on this animal that there is no genitals under the stomach. So we can assume that that is a female, right off the bat. And again, these things are not obvious, from the jump, because it's one of those things you're not really looking for. But the moment that you have to judge animals, and that's your only way of judging, things become apparent. The little things matter now. So we're going to take a look at this herd. They seem a little bit uneasy here. We're going to try and field judge. Now age will be really tough to tell. I mean, you can look at the coats and you can say, well, the pale looking guys maybe look older, but that really is not always the case. Now we have a nice Gemsbok here, and you can see there is no genitals underneath the stomach. We can assume that's a female. So this is what you kind of want to look for. I look for like the difference in weight. I look at the horns at the base because the males have a thicker horn base than the female does. Now that is really tricky to tell because again, I don't know how much of that is implemented in Way of the Hunter. How much can we trust or judge? But based on the encyclopedia, it doesn't really tell you about the genitals. So obviously that's either a given that they expect you to know, or something you gotta look, and research on yourself, by yourself. So as we're judging here, we can look and say, okay, we can see which one is male or female. Like this guy in the front here, that's a male, but we don't know what age he is. We don't know how to judge this. So you're gonna have to sort of do a trial and error. Take a couple of these guys out and kind of see what they look like, because it's kind of hard to judge because of the lighting and all these other factors. So we're going to find a decent male here. We're going to take him out. We're going to see what age he is and how we can, judge this better. Just trying to make sure we're not getting charged here. And I think this is really tricky for a lot of other species. Some are almost impossible. Like bears and stuff, it's almost impossible to tell, what gender and all that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty sure there is a variation, but it's so minute, so tiny, that it's really hard to tell. But with other species, at least you have something to go with, something to go by, and studying these Gemsboks really gives you something to kind of start with, like a foundation, if you want to say so. So I believe they were over this river, well, this little pond. Oh, he didn't go far at all. That was a great shot. So as we can see here, his horns are pretty small. We can see the genital. So, is he a male? So from about 194 meters out, we got a nice hard shot. That's beautiful. And we have a young male, 59%. Now if we take a look at the horns, you can see the bases are thick, but it's not thick enough for you to really field judge that. So this is in line with a very young male, but you won't really know unless you get really close. We can see the telltale genitals, we can see the coat, and we can assume that the paler this coat gets, the older it gets, because this is a young guy. And look how rich and nice that coat looks. So again, it's really tough to judge these animals, but again, when you pay attention to these little things, take a note of it, it goes a long way. So the next thing we're going to look for is for a female, or mainly like a pale looking coat. Because what we want to look for here is, can we judge the coat? Can we say that a paler coat means an older animal? I think I see one here just behind this guy. Now if we can do that, then we would definitely have an advantage and say, okay, we can make a really good judgment and say that pale, or, palish looking coat is something to kind of go by. Now, we won't be able to tell the most accurate when it comes to age, but at least we would have something to go by. So I just shot at what I think is a female. I would like to think she's mature, but we don't know that. So herd management becomes a bit of a roll of the dice because you really don't know what you're shooting. If you're watching these herds, for a couple of days and stuff, you really have to pay attention to the way they look to find any kind of sign of aging, because the reality is that you really don't know. You can tell, okay, this is a male or a female. You can look at the coat, maybe the weight, maybe the horns. It's a bit of the roll of the dice, because you really, really have no clue. If we're trying to get better at field judging, we're trying to get better at what to look for, and one day we will master this. One day you're going to get the hang of exactly what to look for. So from 182 meters out, we got bird shot. Beautiful. And as we thought, it's a female. And when we look at the coat, it's a mature female. So we are correct. We don't see anything under the belly. We look at the coat and we can see it's faded. We look at the horns. It's thin. Exactly like what the encyclopedia says. So we know as a foundation now we can say a pale looking Gemsbok means it's in a mature state. Now how old? That we don't know. We're going to have to look and see what other telltale signs we can find to judge. But this is a very good judgment, very good study on these Gemsboks. And again, at least we have a foundation to pretty much go by. So I really hope that helps. Because if you're really trying to do some herd management and you're looking at these animals without the star system, for some people it can become very tedious, really, really tough. But I feel with time invested, really doing some deep study on these Gemsboks, you would kind of eventually get the hang of, or get a feel of what to look for. And you won't always be perfect, and that's the great thing about Ranger, is that it takes away all certainty. And I think that's really what the intent was, is that at least with the star system, you can look and say, for sure, this is what that is. It's a 2-star or whatever the case may be. With Ranger, all certainty is gone. You are at the mercy of nature and of judgment. And I think that's fantastic. It's such a great, rewarding gameplay. And we just gotta work on mastering what we see and making an informed decision, because the encyclopedia is not going to hold our hands. It's not going to tell us exactly what to look for. That's hidden, and it's up to us to find it. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you play on Ranger, how do you feel judge? Do you have any tips? I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more studies on other animals, or on the Gemsboks, as I uncover more things to see how we can master field judging. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.